What is going on, everybody? This is Jackson from JD Sports Zone, and today I have a very special guest, former MLB pitcher, former Los Angeles Dodger, Mr. John Eli. Mr. Eli, thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to do this. How was your summer? And thank you once again.
It's great to be. First off, Jackson, it's great to meet you, and I appreciate you having me on. This is an honor for me. I know you've had some probably better, more interesting interviews than this one, but I'm glad to be on the show, and I know you're from my area as well, right? You're a Joliet guy.
Yes, sir.
Beautiful Southsiders, baby. Are you a Sox fan?
I am not. I'm actually a St. Louis Cardinals fan. So, at least it's not the Cubs. At least you're not a Cubs
Hey,
fan.
it's all
So,
right. I got no hatred toward the Cubs. I don't know if you've seen my podcast, but we have a whole segment on that where it's the resentment from White Sox fans toward Cub fans, and everything. There's none of that from me, but at the same time, I'm glad I'm glad you're a Cardinals fan and not a Cubs fan.
yeah. No, again, I'm super excited to have you on, being from the Homewood area and a Chicagoland guy. So I do want to start off with the beginning of your pro ball career. You were drafted in the third round back in 2007, actually to your hometown team, the Chicago White Sox, out of the University of Miami of Ohio. Now, normally I ask the question of why didn't you wait a little bit longer in college or what made you do this, but you were drafted in the third round. So, before being traded to LA, what was the scouting and draft process like personally for you?
So it was very interesting, and honestly, going to a mid-major school, well, so I'll back up a little bit. So I came out of high school and didn't have a ton of it. Like I had some interest. Was I thought a bigger prospect than the schools that were recruiting me, but you get humbled pretty quickly when you realize that, yeah, I'm kind of where I belong. So I ended up on Miami, Ohio as my choice, which I don't think could have been a better choice. That was the best college experience I could have ever hoped for. It's ended up having a pretty good career over there. And, once the draft situation came around in 2007 or going into that 2007 season, it was interesting, man. I was very fortunate to have the probably in my opinion the best agent on the planet at that point, but advisor at that point, but really helped me through that whole process of sifting through the white noise and everything that he did, where he took over the reins and talked to all the teams, talked to all the scouting directors and everybody that were interested in kind of taking me at a certain point. And obviously, I was told could be anywhere from the back end of the first round to the fourth round, which you never know with the draft. So that being such a confusing time, it was very fortunate. I was very fortunate to have him on my side to clarify some of those issues that were coming up. Because I'll tell you what, that's an experience that you don't get twice. You know what I mean? When you go through it, funny story about that. I had a party at my house, which I was advised against because I knew that I was potentially going to be like a high round pick. So I had probably 120 people at my house, and I'm grilling and stuff like that. And it was stressful as hell because you're anticipating all this and you never know how hard that situation is going to hit you until you go through it. And you're like, oh my God, all my dreams, everything I've worked for, it's about to, the beginning of it could be right now. And then you just start overthinking everything that you're doing, and you get anxiety comes over a little bit. And even though you're surrounded by friends and family, it's like, everybody shut up and just leave me alone for a minute. Like my mom caught me in the basement a few times, just sitting there like on the couch, like, oh man, like she's like, you're okay, don't worry. And then all of a sudden that third round, top end of the first or the third round rolls around, and I right before then I got a call from the Braves saying, "Hey, are you still draftable?" I was like, "The fuck do you think?" Like, sorry, excuse my French. I was like, "Yeah, I'm ready to go." And then no more than 1 second after that, I get a call from Mike Shirley, who was the area scout at the time, who's now the president of scouting and head of scouting with the White Sox. He's like, "Mr. Eli?" I was like, "Yes." He's like, "This is Mike Shirley." All I had to hear was, "This is Mike Shirley," and then I found out I was going to go into the system with the team that I grew up watching and loving, the Chicago White Sox. And I swear to God, Jackson, my head hit the ceiling in my living room. I jumped up, sprinted outside, and there was 120 people out there, and that 120 people turned into 400 people. I swear to God, everybody heard the news. People came from all over the neighborhood. I'm serving burgers and corn on the cob, and we're all having beers and champagne and stuff. It was boy, that was one of the best experiences of my life. That was insane.
And sometimes it's not about the destination; it's about the journey that leads you there. So,
Yes.
it's great to hear that you were surrounded by friends, family, and random neighbors that would show up to the cookout barbecue
Yeah.
side of things. And
Well, full disclosure, though, I got lucky because I could have easily slipped into the fifth, sixth round of the second day, and then all those people over there like, "Well, what the hell happened?" I was very fortunate to actually get drafted on that first day, and I would advise anybody watching this podcast, if you are in that situation where you can, you're fortunate enough to be in a position to get drafted, and you think that you're going to go, don't have as big a party as I did. I like because you never know what's going to happen. And I've seen a lot of horror stories where guys slip, and you don't want to, you don't want to have 120 people at your house like I did, and then all of a sudden you don't go, and you're like, well, what the hell happened here? You got to explain, but it'll happen. Just be smarter about it than I was, please.
I feel like that's great advice. And, I just graduated from college back in May, and I have a lot of friends that were on the baseball team, being draft eligible and having parties, and just make sure there's no casualties or injuries. So it's great to hear,
Yep.
from that side of things. Now, I kind of want to dive in a little bit into your minor league career because you had a successful stretch earlier on in the minor leagues. You were called up at the age of 23. Your first game was against the New York Mets. You were facing guys like David Wright, Jason Bay, in my opinion, one of the most underrated guys during the
My
2000s.
first strikeout of my career was Jason Bay. Yeah.
Was Jason Bay. I have
Yeah.
a lot of friends that are Mets fans, so they'll like to hear that.
I got all sitting up there in one of these containers somewhere. So.
And I do want to ask this because what is the biggest adjustment from jumping to the minor leagues to facing a star-studded lineup like the New York Mets in that era of baseball?
Um, I'll tell you what, oh shit, Jackson, that's a really good question because, when you get called up and I was in a situation with the Dodgers, I'd just been traded. Uh, I was in AAA in Albuquerque for, I think it was like 2.5 or 3 weeks. I made 3 starts,
Mhm.
and I was throwing the ball fairly well, but I was also the fifth starter on that staff. We had a rock solid staff of veterans, and the guys there were a couple guys were already on the 40 man. Some guys that went on to have really good careers as well. I fell into a really good situation where I was throwing really well at the time, and there was a couple other people that weren't in a position to make that spot. So that spot start because it was Vicente Padilla that went down. I forget exactly what the ailment was, but it wasn't like a long term IL situation. But I just lucked out to have my start surrounding that same spot where a couple other guys had injuries at the same time, or they were going through something where they couldn't have made that start. So, uh, fortunately for me, I did the work and I was throwing well at the time. So, Tim Wallach calls me into the into, into the clubhouse. We were in Omaha, Nebraska, and he looks at me, he's Johnny. Hey, look, here's the deal. Vicente is going to miss a start, and it looks like we're about 99% sure you're going to be making that start in New York. And as he's talking to me and saying this, I'm like, all of the emotions that you can possibly imagine flooding in at once, like your childhood dream is just about to come true, and it just becomes almost a fever dream. And I'm looking at Tim, I was like, what? I, I'm going to the big leagues. He's like, not, we're 99% sure. I will let you know later tonight. But buddy, it looks like it looks like you're going to go to the big leagues and make the start against the Mets, on April 28th. I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God, this is happening. Like,
Mhm.
holy shit. So I walked out, I got my hands over my head, and everybody's like, get the call. And JD Klosser was there. He warned me that like the day before, he's like, hey, just so you know, I think Padilla is going down, and I bet it's you. And I'm like, JD, come on, man. We have 5 other guys on this staff that are really good, and 2 of them. He's like, I'm just I'm just warning you, man. Be prepared. You might be going to the big leagues. And then it happened, and JD comes out. He's like, what I tell you? I'm like, oh my god, this is happening. And then you go deal with it, right?
Hmm.
So the 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 biggest step there is getting onto the field, and all of a sudden you're not throwing in Omaha, you're not throwing in Albuquerque, which are significant stadiums and phenomenal minor league stadiums. But I'm in New York at pitching against the Mets. I looked up, all of a sudden the rows of seats, they just never stopped. You're like, you just keep scaling. Wow, this is a lot. And then you jump into your routine. Um, as soon as you do that, and as soon as you toe the rubber for your first pitch, I think that just the preparation and the fact that you're doing what you've been doing for your whole life, as long as you're prepared, everything goes away, and it's just business as usual. And I think I had a really, that's when, like I told you, I got my first strikeout in my first inning against Jason Bay to end the inning in a 3-2 count on a comeback fastball that I didn't even know I could throw at the time. Very wind assisted, but you know, I think I didn't even remember hardly any of that first inning. I just remember getting the strikeout and sprinting off the mound, going to sit down like, holy shit, I can pitch in the big leagues. And then you just kind of settle in. I had a rough inning there and I think it was the second or third, like David Wright hit a double off the wall. And then I think he got an out. There was runners on the corners, and I got a ground ball back to me. And I checked the runner at third instead of just turning the double play and getting out of it. So I gave up like a 4 spot or 3 or 4 spot that inning. And then Joe Torre comes out and he's like, hey, listen, I'm not taking you out of this game. Just do what you did when you were in the minor leagues. Like, you're right. And then I went the rest of the game without giving up a hit, ended up getting up into the sixth, giving us a chance. We lost, but I gave us a chance to win. And it's like, yeah, holy shit, I belong here. And then you rattle off a couple more starts, then it just becomes part of your routine, but you never stop realizing you're in the big leagues. It's the coolest experience, that everything that you think the big leagues would be, like the entire aura of and everything that goes on in there, and you're like, I don't know how it's going to be. It surpasses all of your wildest expectations. It is the greatest experience that you could possibly imagine.
And I bet it was an absolute like wake up moment in the MLB. And Mets fans are absolutely ruthless. New York City is ruthless, and that's one hell of a place to make a major league debut, and especially against a star-studded team like that. And that kind of actually leads to my next question because you talked about pitching against the Mets a couple weeks later. You were credited with your first win versus the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Mhm.
Again, another star-studded lineup with a young Justin Upton, Mark Reynolds, Adam LaRoche.
Mhm.
And it was an in division win too. And Chase Field is not an easy place to pitch in. So, what was it like getting your first career major league win?
Well, it helped that we scored 12 runs that game. It takes a little bit of stress off the situation. But my previous start before, I thought, like when I went up to cover for Padilla, I thought it was going to be a spot start, and I even told her, I was like, "Well, I'll see you guys in a week," and well, we'll see about that. Had a pretty good start, and my second one against the Brewers was I settled in, so they kind of created that space, and all of a sudden you're starting to think, like, oh shit, I'm in this rotation, and I go to pitch it. Obviously the run support was huge, but you just get in a rhythm, and for me it was very easy because I had Russ Martin to throw to,
Hmm.
who's in my mind, like he's a borderline Hall of Famer in my mind. I mean, I know he's on the ballot, and get out there and vote, everybody, because he was one of the best teammates, if not the best teammate I ever had. Smartest guys, one of the best catchers I've ever seen in my life, and I got to throw to him. So he took a lot of the thinking out of my hands and took a lot of the stress off of it. So I just had to. He threw down a number. I'm going to hit you in the glove. So dust settles. I get my first win, and I didn't even know how to go to sleep that night. I'm like, I remember we're going up the tunnel out of the locker room there, and I was walking with Kershaw. I was like, Kersh, dude, I need to go grab a drink. You want to come with me? He's like, absolutely. So we just went to a little dive bar around the corner, had a few beers so I could decompress, and so him and a couple other guys like AJ Ellis, I think, was there, and I think Jeff Weaver was there as well. They look at me. They humbled the shit out of me. He's like, "Hey, listen, you're one win in. You got a long way to go, kid." It's like, yeah, you're right. So it was very, I was very fortunate to have the best teammates as well. But that experience, man, yeah, you're taking me back down memory lane, and I kind of love it. But I now I got FOMO. I missed those times quite a bit.
Hey, I mean, there's always opportunities like the Savannah Bananas to go out there and
Hey,
and pitch
as
again.
a coach, Jackson, dude, if you looked at my arm, you just I can barely straighten my arm out anymore. I have too many surgeries, and it's like if you were to open up my elbow again, it'd probably look like a can of dog food in there. So not the best situation, but yeah, you never know. Hey, shit, hey, Savannah Bananas boys, if you need a pitching coach with some electric enthusiasm, you just let me know.
And it's great to hear all the the moments you had with those guys during the Dodgers rotation and roster and going down to dive bars in Arizona with Clayton Kershaw. That actually leads perfectly to my next question because you were in that rotation with guys like Clayton Kershaw, Chad Billingsley, a very young Nathan Eovaldi who's still playing in today's game.
My
What
catcher,
were
he was awesome.
what were some funny and best moments that outside of the dive bar situation that stick out to you throughout your major league career with those guys?
Oh God, let me let me think here. I have, God, I mean, I have some stories. Like, so full disclosure, like most of my funny stories come out of the minor leagues. Like, there's one thing that I actually wanted to say originally. It was like you, the major leagues is irreplaceable, but your best and most memorable stories usually come out of the minor leagues. Like those situations, you're never going to be in more situations that are going to make you laugh than those because you can be a little bit more of a degenerate. The spotlight isn't so focused on you. But if I'm thinking about funny stories, I'll never forget. No, so we were in spring training, and how what was it? We were taking BP, and if you go back and look, I can't swing the bat to save my life. I finally figured it out a little bit, down the road. But we're sitting there taking BP in 2011 spring training, and it's Kershaw and Billingsley and all those guys, like they could swing it, and we'd always have this competition where it's like, okay, $200 for a home run, blah blah, whatever. We'll see who wins this round, and then at the end of the month, whoever the loser is has to pay out. And but we're sitting there taking BP, and I'm taking practice swings over on the side, and Kenny Howell is sitting over there, and I take a big cut, and the bat just comes out of my hands and flies probably 2/3 of the way up, up the backstop, and all the reporters like, God, and Kenny Howell just keels over laughing. He's like, Johnny, dude, I needed that one because I was having a shitty day till right there. You just saved me because he was laughing his ass off, man. There was a lot of experiences of me trying to hit that made everybody else laugh. I took a little bit harder than them, but now it's funny to look back on. But oh man, there's a couple others. Let me think. Now you caught me off guard. That was a good question. Um, here's a good one. So you said that you talked to John Broxton, right?
Mhm.
Brox is the man. One of the most like soft spoken, silent assassins that I've ever met in my life. So this guy was a prankster to like the T of being a prankster. He would love to, kind of play practical jokes on guys in the locker room. And the funniest part of it was like he would talk so low where you couldn't even hear what he was saying. So if he's talking to you, he's like, you have to get right up next to him. Brox, I can't hear you, dude. So he was trying to tell me what he was going to do. He brought in this thing of hot sauce, right? That you had only needed like a little, kind of like almost a toothpick at the end of it, and you put it on your tongue, and you're like, you got to go to the bathroom. You're drinking a gallon of milk because it was that hot. It was like concentrated freaking habaneros or like ghost peppers or some shit like that.
Mhm.
So he's walking around with this, having people taste it, and he goes up to one of the reporters, turns to me, he goes, "Hey, John," like, I don't know what the fuck he's saying. Like, it's like essentially, it was like, Brox, what are you saying? He's like, I'm gonna have this, I'm gonna have this guy taste it because I don't like him. And then everybody turned their heads. It's like, shit, Brox. He goes, hey, comes over, brings up his hot sauce. Reporter puts it on his tongue, and John just turns and goes, guy wore it. And he goes, all of a sudden, sweating, bam to the locker room, and John just is dying laughing. He's like, I told that guy, I knew I didn't like him, or something like that. It was really funny. There was a few others with him. I want to tell that story because I know you talked to him, and man, that guy was a great teammate. You know, I could go down the laundry list. Oh, here's another one. And if Casey Blake, if you listen to this podcast, buddy, it wasn't me that did this. Okay. So we're in Wrigley Field. All right. And somebody in the locker room, and it was the day of my start too. And uh, pretty, I got designated about 2 weeks after this start, or no, a little bit longer after that. But there was a day I started at Wrigley Field, and somebody left the most disastrous dump in the toilet in there. Right. This thing was it was a swamp alligator, dude. It was hanging out almost to the top of the bowl. I know this is disgusting. You want details, but to this day, I know Casey blames me for it. He's like, it was your start. You came in, all of a sudden it was there, and it wasn't before you got in the locker room, Johnny. It wasn't there. I was like, Casey, it wasn't me that did it, dude. I promise you, it wasn't me that did it. So he's walking around, walks back past my locker 3 or 4 times. He's like, hey, man, you got to go to the bathroom? I was like, Casey, Jesus Christ, dude. It wasn't me. So I go down to the minor leagues. I get called back up in like August or something like that. And Casey's waiting in my locker. He's like, you ready to admit it? I was like, admit what? I just got back. I just got my foot in the door. He's like, it was you that took that dump at Wrigley Field, wasn't it? I was like, Casey, it wasn't me, dude. It's like, I'm just saying, I haven't seen a dump in a toilet since that day, and it was you that did it. I'm telling you, it was you. It wasn't me. But and knowing Wrigley Field, that place was before they did the renovations, was already a shithole. So it made it worse, and it clogged the toilet and everything else. So he's blamed me for that, probably to this day. So Casey, if you're listening to this, it wasn't me.
Honestly, this is probably the most fun I've ever had on the interview.
I know you weren't expecting that one.
No, I wasn't at all. From hot sauce to the reporter to dumps in the locker room. I think that I need to make it back to LA now that I'm graduated. Go to a Dodgers game. I don't know if any current Dodgers ever going to tell me the story, but I truly enjoy.
To run into the old guys. Like if Casey's the only one I think that noticed it. Like because he wore me out about it. I was like, it wasn't me, dude. Like, yeah, it was funny.
We'll still never know to this day. I guess we'll
I have
never know.
speculations, but I'm not going to be like him and just put it on somebody. But yeah, I see where he's coming from. I didn't do it though, Casey. Wasn't me.
Now, so I do want to transition into your post playing career because once you retired from the game, you had the opportunities to a full circle moment for you, being a pitching coach in the White Sox organization with Winston Salem Dash and teams like that, and you had the opportunity to be managed by guys like Joe Torre, Don
Mhm.
Mattingly. Your pitching coach was Rick Honeycutt for a while. So, like, what was the biggest piece of advice that you kind of took from those guys into implementing into your own pitching philosophy as a pitching coach?
You know, God, that's a loaded question too. So I got plenty of advice, and actually, I'll tell you what the biggest impact on my coach, actually my playing and coaching career, was from a gentleman who ended up being my mentor as a coach, and also was my pitching coach in 2009 when I was in Birmingham as a player. J.R. Purdue was was probably the best pitching coach that I have ever seen, ever had, and ever worked with. Like, I not to discount it. Like I've learned so much over the last few years, especially toward the back end when I got to work with Brian Bannister at the tail end of my career as a coach, and Matt Zaleski's one of my best friends and one of the most. He's the pitching coordinator with the White Sox now, and one of the best coaches I've ever seen. But for me, working with J.R. Purdue was that guy. You don't get better than him as far as a coach and a human being. And he he would always tell me, so on the coaching side, if you don't have the answer, don't give an answer, find it, and being transparent, telling the truth to the players is the biggest one, because they don't want to hear what they want to hear. They need to hear what the situation actually is. So if you're honest with players, you're going to get the most out of them. You're going to build a relationship, and you're going to build trust. So they're actually, because the biggest part about coaching, Jackson, is building trust. So when you ask a group full of, or a bleeding heart red alpha males that you have to figure out ways to get them to, follow the head of the spear, which is supposed to be you, right? You can't get that without trust. So being transparent, telling the truth, and admitting what you don't know goes a lot further than trying to just say, okay, well, I'm supposed to have all the answers, so I'm going to make something up. Um, and another one for me, like that I learned from JR, was he was so passionate and so caring, and he loved his players so much that he would actually, it felt like when he was your coach that he's out on the mound with you, and you wanted to do just as good of a job for you as you did for him, because you know how invested that he was. So I wanted to be that same guy. I wanted to make sure that these guys were, and you do that by, so like every roster is constructed. You're going to have your prospects all the way down to the in the minor leagues, probably got anywhere from 15 to 17 guys on a pitching staff. So if I'm in rookie ball and I have 17 to 18 guys on a staff, and I have the first and second round picks there at the top, yeah, I have to spend a lot of time with them because we need those guys to be good. But that 17th, 18th guy is just as important, and they have to feel that way. Otherwise, you lose credibility as a coach. So you're spending just as much time on every single player, and when your staff and the rest of the team sees that, they respect that. And it's the only way to go about it. Like if you don't have time for every single person the same way you have time for the first round draft pick that year, like, okay, who are you gonna be able to hang your hat on? You know what I'm saying? I remember we had Sammy Peralta, who I think he's in the big leagues with the Angels right now, or just recently was. I think I forget what, I think he was like 11th or 12th round draft pick, lefty through, at the time 89, 92 or something like that. Pretty good stuff and everything else. But we would look at each other and say, okay, this is a guy, if we can get him to double A, triple A, then we've won, because we know he's not throwing as hard as some of the other guys. Maybe his mix isn't as sound or speaks directly to as a major league player would look. Well, he's had like 5 years in the big leagues now, because we took time. There was a point where I'm sitting on an electrical box in the back of the right field line in Zebulon, North Carolina, with Sammy, and he's got a 10 ERA in low A. And he's like, Johnny, I know I'm better than this, and blah blah. He's like, okay, well, hey, you know what, Sammy, I know you are too, and we're going to talk about what we can do to fix this. We're going to throw more changeups. We're going to throw more sliders. We're going to improve your slider, but you can't give up. You have to keep attacking. But let's start getting you back to where you need to be as that guy that was punching guys out in a rookie ball. Now all of a sudden you're here. What are you doing differently? Okay, well, I got to throw more changeups. I got to do this. Yeah, exactly. Man, he went out and carved that 10 ERA down to a 3 in about 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and he was on the verge of getting released or sent back down to rookie ball. Well, blink your eyes, all of a sudden he got called up, and I'm like, that was one of the most emotional calls up for me. Like I called him. I was in tears. Like, Sam, I'm so freaking proud of you, dude. And you see these guys that he was the 10th or 11th or 12th guy on the staff. Now all of a sudden you're looking up. He's got 5 years in the big leagues. That's what's possible. That's the impact you can have. And I'm not saying it was just me. It was a group effort. He always had it in him. But helping him with that turnaround to get him to a point where he had that opportunity and getting him higher than we ever thought he was going to be able to go. Man, Sammy, I love that kid. And those are the kids that you hang your hat on, and that's the impact you can potentially have as a coach.
And I think, valued and being valued, especially from treating everybody the same, whether you're a first round draft pick, whether you're a 20th round draft pick, in the organization. I think you bring great values, and clearly it seemed to work on guys like Sammy Peralta and other.
Selesky into that pot too. He just recently got called up with the Devil Rays, and I think he's with the Reds now. But man, that guy grounded out. He just like, he must be 30 years old now. He finally got his call up. He was released like 3 times. I think he went and played some indie ball, came back and got a chance and never quit. Man, that's one of those calls. Hey, Johnny, I'm getting called up. Like, Chase, buddy, where do I got to be? Where do I got to go? I'm going to be there, bud. Well, sorry, I didn't mean to derail you.
Oh, no, it's all good. I love hearing behind the scenes moments from especially coaching philosophies in call ups and implementations because fans don't realize how much goes into like the minor league grind and the major league grind because it's not just physical adjustments you have to make, it's also a mental battle, a mental grind as well. So I love hearing these stories. And I do want to end on a light note because we have about 7 minutes left in this meeting. And I know, again, you're a Chicagoland area guy. Personally, I want to throw out Portillo's because Portillo's is a great place for food. What's the best Chicagoland area food that maybe you had during your coaching career, playing career, or just growing up in the Chicagoland area?
Oh, you gotta love Portillo's. I know they have a couple Portillo's out in Phoenix now, but I know Dick Portillo sold, and it's not quite the same sandwich anymore. Just hate to see it, but it is what it is. But you can't trip over your shoelaces in Chicago without falling in front of an incredible restaurant. This place is unbelievable. So for me, I think this can be controversial. I know a lot of people. I know Dave Portnoy actually did a review of Aurelio's Pizza in Homewood, where I'm from. You've had Aurelio's in Homewood, the
Yes.
original. How good is that?
Not in Homewood. I think it was in
Oh, you gotta go to the one in Homewood, dude. That's the
yeah.
original. Like,
I've
and I know
I've
I'm getting worn out for this, but sorry, go ahead.
I've had Aurelio's in I think it was Oswego. It was either
They're
Oswego
not all
or yeah.
they're not all the same. You got to go to Homewood. You got to eat in the store too, and like that place is it. Well, I grew up in Homewood, so it's a little bit nostalgic for me, but I do still think that's one of the best pieces. I think pitching coordinator Matt Zaleski with the White Sox would probably agree with me because he had it and he's like, God, damn, you weren't wrong. This is the best pizza. But yeah, that's really good. So you say Portillo's. There is a place here in Lombard that opened up. There's one in Chicago and in Lombard, which is their new location. Their beef sandwich is called Triano's. Wow, is that a good beef sandwich? That's probably the best one I've had in this area. Trying to think. There's some places in the West Loop where I was living for like 10 years. I bought a place in the West Loop in 2011 and sold it in 21. So uh, Bavette's Steakhouse, best steakhouse in Chicago. Uh, what am I missing here? God bless. I'll think of it. God, I'm gonna blow this, but there's there's some really good. Like I said, there's so many good restaurants in Chicago, but those are the ones that ring like really kind of resonate with me. Is the Triano's beef, which is recent, to be honest with you. Aurelio's Pizza and Bavette's Steakhouse. It used to be Gibson's. Gibson's is a little bit overpopulated at this point, and so is Bavette's now, sure. But that's the best steakhouse, best pizza, and best beef in Illinois, I think.
Unfortunately, I did move down to the state of Georgia back in 2021, so not as good pizza out here. I mean, they just opened a Portillo's in a little bit north of Atlanta, but I need to go back to Chicago now that I'm 22 years old, but enjoy the scenery more. You appreciate it when you're older.
Yes, yeah, wild.
But Mr. Eli, thank you again so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to do this. Anything you'd like to shout out or anything before we wrap up this interview?
Yeah, no, hey, Jackson, I just wanted to say thank you for having me on, man. I wish we had another hour to do this because I'm having a really good time talking with you. But at some point, you should jump on and we'll collaborate with Two Johns and a Mike, which is my podcast. Have you seen that yet?
I have
I'll
I, I have
I'll
not
send you
yet.
some links, man. Yeah, I wasn't sure how you found me, but I'll send you a link so you can check out some of our content. But we'd love to collaborate with you at some point. And no, other than that, just shout out my little boy Brooks, who's sleeping upstairs. Hopefully, I didn't keep him awake. My beautiful wife Kelly, who makes this all possible, so I could leave my job and start creating a couple new ones with the agency and everything else. So, and also, a shout out Mason Adams just made his professional debut or major league debut with the Rockies. It's my kid, man. I love him. He's so good. Had a great one, but that's just recent events. I probably have 50 more, but other than that, I can't think of anything else.
Well, again, thank you so much, and probably the most fun I've ever had on an interview.
We'll
You
shoot
know, most
at some point, man.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely need to collaborate, and I will be checking that out once I hop off of here, and then before I head into work later today. But again, thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have an amazing day.
All right. Yeah, you as well, Jackson. Great talk, man. I'll talk to you soon.